My husband was packing his bag. He didn't say much. He was leaving me for another woman. I didn't cry or beg. I stayed calm. I had been ready for this. I walked up and placed an envelope on the table near him. Before you go, I said, open this. He looked confused. Slowly, he took the envelope and opened it. He pulled out the paper and started reading. His eyes moved across the page, then stopped. He read it again. His face changed. He sat down, shocked and silent. It was a DNA test. The test showed that our son, Jamie, is not his biological child. I already knew that. We both should have known that. Years ago, we found out he couldn't have children. We were heartbroken. After talking for weeks, we decided to use a sperm donor. It was not an easy choice, but it was our choice. We went through everything together. Every form, every visit, every decision we made as a team. When Jamie was born, he was perfect. We loved him completely. We raised him with joy and care. He was our world. But lately, my husband had grown cold. He started coming home late. He had messages on his phone. Then one night, during a fight, he accused me. He asked if Jamie was even his. He said it like a weapon, trying to hurt me. He forgot everything. That's when I decided to get the test done. Not because I had anything to prove, but because I wanted him to see the truth he had forgotten. He sat there now, staring at the paper. His hands trembled. I could see it, the moment he remembered. The moment it all came back. The doctor visits. The long talks. The night we cried together. The promise we made. He looked up at me, his mouth open like he wanted to speak. I said nothing. I had no more words left for him. I turned away and left him sitting there. Let him go to her. Let her see the man he is now, a man who forgets, who blames, who runs. She can have him, but he won't forget what he left behind. Not just me, not just Jamie, but the truth, the life we built, the love that once meant everything. Now he knows what was real, and what he lost. For weeks, I acted like everything was fine. I woke up early, made breakfast, packed his lunch, and smiled as he left for work. I kept the house clean, helped Jamie with his schoolwork, and made sure dinner was ready every evening. I did everything a good wife should do. He started coming home later than usual. At first, he said he was busy at work. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I told myself not to overthink it. But the small signs began to grow. One night, I heard his phone buzz after midnight. He said it was work, but he took the call in another room. When he came back, he looked nervous and didn't meet my eyes. Then I noticed he had started dressing differently. New shirts, new cologne, a fresh haircut. He said he just wanted a change. I smiled and told him he looked nice. But deep inside, something didn't feel right. He had never cared much about those things before. Sometimes I could smell perfume on him. It wasn't mine. It was soft, sweet, and unfamiliar. He said he hugged a coworker who was going through a hard time. I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just watched. He laughed less at home. He spent more time looking at his phone than talking to me. At dinner, I asked him how his day was. He gave short answers. Sometimes he didn't answer at all. He said he was tired, and I said nothing. Even when he was home, he wasn't really with us. He sat on the couch and stared at the TV. He looked past me, like I wasn't even there. Jamie would show him a drawing, and he would say, "That's nice," without looking up. I watched my son's face fall, but I stayed silent. I stayed calm. I stayed patient. I did the laundry, cleaned the bathroom, took care of the bills, and planned Jamie's birthday party. I didn't want to believe my husband was drifting away. I told myself maybe it was stress. Maybe he would come back to me. I held on to hope. I stopped sleeping well. I would lie awake while he turned his back to me in bed. I listened to the sound of him breathing and wondered where his mind had gone. I wanted to ask him if he still loved me, but I didn't. I was afraid of the answer. One night, I found a message on his phone. It was short, just a heart emoji and "miss you already." It wasn't from me. I stood there, holding his phone, feeling the world shift under my feet. I put the phone back and didn't say a word. I still made breakfast the next morning. I still smiled when he walked out the door. I still folded his shirts and placed them neatly in the drawer. I was doing my part. I was being the perfect wife. But inside, something had changed. I wasn't blind. I wasn't stupid. I saw everything. I felt everything. I just wasn't ready to show it yet. Not yet. I started watching him closely. His words and actions didn't match. He said he was working late, but I couldn't reach him. He said he had meetings, but gave no details. Something felt wrong, and I knew I had to find out the truth for myself. I checked our bank account. There were charges I'd never seen before, fancy restaurants, hotel stays, and gifts I hadn't received. I said nothing. I saved the receipts and kept track of the dates. Every small detail started to form a clear picture. One night, while he was in the shower, I unlocked his phone. He had changed the passcode, but I had seen it before. Once inside, I went straight to his messages. That's where I saw her. Her name wasn't written out, just a heart emoji. Their texts went back months. He called her sweet names. He told her things he hadn't said to me in years. They shared inside jokes. He sent her pictures. They made plans. He said he missed her every time they were apart. She was younger, much younger, a co-worker, someone he worked with every day. He had helped train her when she first joined. They started meeting outside of work. They had been seeing each other for nearly a year. I read every message and saved everything. Photos, texts, times, places. I sent copies to myself and stored them safely. I looked through her social media. She didn't mention him, but the hints were there. She posted pictures from the same places he claimed to be for work. Once, I saw part of his shirt in the corner of a photo. She didn't even notice. But I did. Another day, I followed him. I waited a few blocks away from where he said his meeting would. He wasn't there. I saw him get into her car. They drove off together. I followed from a distance. They parked, laughed, kissed, and walked into a hotel. I stayed out of sight. I already knew what they were doing, but now I had seen it with my own eyes. Still, I said nothing. He didn't know I was on to him. At home, I acted the same. I greeted him like always. I asked about his day. He smiled and gave vague answers, thinking I suspected nothing. Every day, I added to my file. I kept my calm. I knew I couldn't rush. I had to be ready. I needed a plan that protected me and my son. This wasn't about revenge. It was about staying in control. He had made his choice. He thought he was being careful. He thought I was still in the dark. But I had all the pieces now. I knew who she was. I knew how long it had been going on. I had names, places, dates, and proof. And I was going to use it when the time was right. He was standing by the window, silent, arms crossed. I asked him what was wrong, and he didn't answer right away. Then he looked at me with cold eyes and said something that stopped me. "Is Jamie even mine?" I stood still. For a second, I didn't understand what he meant. Then it hit me. He was accusing me. He was asking if our son was really his. I felt like something inside me froze. After everything we had been through, after all the nights we cried and hoped for a child, he said this. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just looked at him. He didn't seem confused. He seemed angry, like he had been holding it in for a while. Like he was ready to use those words to hurt me. He had forgotten. Or maybe he chose to forget. We had gone through tests. We had sat in a doctor's office and heard the news together. He couldn't have children. It was hard, but we faced it. We made a decision together. We used a donor, and we followed every step as a team. It wasn't just my choice. It was ours. But now, he stood there as if none of that had happened. As if I had betrayed him. He looked at me like a stranger, like someone he didn't trust. I didn't remind him. I didn't bring up the past. I didn't say his memory was wrong. I stayed quiet and listened. He walked away, muttering things under his breath. He didn't even look back. Later that night, I sat in bed thinking. The words kept repeating in my mind. Is Jamie even mine? At first, I felt sad. Then I felt something else. I felt clear. He had shown me who he really was. The man who once held my hand in the hospital was now trying to hurt me with lies. The man who promised to be Jamie's father no matter what now questioned everything. That's when I got the idea. He wanted to talk about proof. Fine. I would give him proof. Not just for him, but for me too. I needed something real. Something on paper. Something he couldn't twist or forget. I went online and ordered 2 DNA kits. One for him. One for Jamie. I didn't tell anyone. I waited until Jamie was asleep one night, then took the sample. A simple swab done in seconds. The next day, I made sure to get a sample from him. He didn't notice. I knew his habits, his routine. I got what I needed without a word. I packed the samples and sent them off. Then I waited. During those days, I acted normal. I didn't mention what he said. I didn't ask any questions. He thought I had let it go. He didn't bring it up again either. Maybe he regretted saying it. Maybe he didn't. It didn't matter anymore. I wasn't doing this to change his mind. I was doing this to remind him of the truth. To hold it in my hands and look at it clearly. He could lie to himself, but facts don't lie. He forgot he was the one who couldn't have children. But I didn't. I remembered every appointment, every word from the doctor, every silent moment between us after we got the news. That truth had lived quietly in our past, buried under daily life. But now, because of his words, it had to come out again. Not through a fight, not through yelling, but in black and white from a lab signed and sealed. He gave me a reason. He opened the door. Now I was going to walk through it, and I was going to make sure he saw what was waiting on the other side. I knew what I had to do. I didn't rush. I didn't speak to anyone about it. I went online and ordered 2 DNA test kits. One would be for Jamie. The other would be for my husband. It was easy to do. Just a few clicks, no questions asked. The tests arrived in plain boxes a few days later. I kept them hidden in a drawer where no one would look. I didn't want him to find them. I needed to do this on my own, without noise, without anyone knowing. I waited until Jamie was asleep one night. I gently took the sample using the swab from the kit. He didn't wake up. It only took a few seconds. I labeled everything the way the instructions said. I sealed it and put it back in the box. Getting my husband's sample was different. I knew his habits. I waited until he used a disposable toothbrush and left it near the sink. I put on gloves and carefully took the part one needed. I followed the same steps, sealed the sample, labeled it, and returned it to the box. The kits were now ready to go. I walked to the nearest mailbox the next morning and sent them off. I didn't look back. I just dropped them in and kept walking. I already knew what the results would say. There was no doubt in my mind. We had used a donor. We had both agreed. It had been our decision. But he forgot. Or he wanted to forget. He let anger cloud the truth. So now I needed facts. Not for myself, but to put an end to his questions. Each day after sending the tests, I went on like usual. I cooked, cleaned, and cared for Jamie. I acted as if everything was normal. He didn't notice anything. He had no idea what I had done. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel scared. I felt steady. The truth was on its way, and I was ready for it. I didn't want to argue with him again. I didn't want to go back and forth with words. This was different. This was simple, clean, final. I checked my email every morning. The lab said the results would be ready in about a week. Each day, I got closer to holding the truth in my hand. It didn't matter what he believed anymore. Once he saw it in writing, there would be nothing left to say. I didn't plan what I'd do with the results right away. I only knew I wanted them. A piece of paper can carry more weight than 100 conversations. That paper would speak for me. He had asked the question, and I had answered it in the quietest way possible. No fighting, no shouting, just the truth, measured, tested, and written down. I waited without rushing. I kept the routine going. He still didn't know what was coming, but it was already on its way. The email arrived early in the morning. I saw the subject line and knew what it was. I had been waiting for it, checking every day without saying a word. I opened it slowly, even though I already knew what it would say. There were 2 names listed, Jamie's and my husband's. The report was clear. Jamie was not his biological child. The percentage next to his name was 0. No match. No doubt. I scrolled down and saw my own name. The match was complete. Jamie was my child. Fully, completely, without question. The test didn't surprise me. I had always known the truth. But seeing it on paper made it real in a new way. Now I had something solid. Something I could hold in my hands. I printed the results and looked at the paper for a long time. My name was there, and so was his. The proof sat on a single page. There was nothing to argue about anymore. Years ago, we had gone through a hard time. We wanted a child more than anything. After many doctor visits, we were told the truth. He couldn't have children. It was painful, but we didn't give up. We talked, we cried, and we decided together. We would use a donor. It was a joint decision, made with care and love. When Jamie was born, we were both overjoyed. My husband held him like he had been waiting for him all his life. He fed him, changed him, walked the floor with him when he cried at night. He called him our boy. He told everyone how proud he was to be a father. But time changes people. Somewhere along the way, my husband started pulling away. He grew cold, distant. And when things got worse, he said something I didn't expect. He asked if Jamie was really his, as if none of that past had ever happened, as if he had forgotten everything we had been through. But I hadn't forgotten. Not for a second. I remembered it all. The long talks, the hope, the decision, the moment we brought Jamie home. That journey was clear in my mind, and now I had proof of it. The test results were simple, but they carried so much weight. It didn't just show the facts. It showed the truth he wanted to ignore. Jamie isn't his by blood. He never was. And that's something he had once accepted with love. Now, he was using that truth as a reason to step away, to blame, to run. But this paper took that excuse away. He had no biological claim, but he had made a promise he was now trying to break. I placed the paper in a folder and put it away safely. I didn't rush to show him. I wasn't trying to hurt him with it, but I needed to have it for me and for Jamie. One day, if my husband tried to twist the story again, I would have the facts. I wouldn't need to argue. I would just let the truth speak for itself. I looked at Jamie sleeping that night, his little hand curled up near his face, breathing slow and soft. He didn't know anything about DNA or tests or broken promises. He just knew love. He just needed care, safety, and honesty. That was my job now, to protect him, not just from the world, but from the lies his father might try to tell. The man who once begged for a child was now ready to walk away from, but Jamie would never be alone. Not while I was here. Not while I held the truth in my hands. I told him we needed to talk. I said it was about Jamie and what would happen next. I asked him to bring her too. He agreed. Maybe he thought I was finally giving up. Maybe he thought I was going to ask for less. He didn't know what I had planned. They arrived in the afternoon. She walked in beside him, dressed nicely, holding her bag close. He looked calm, like someone who thought he was in control. I greeted them both politely. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't show any emotion. I simply asked them to sit. There was no yelling, no blame. I kept everything quiet. I brought 3 glasses of water and placed them on the table. Then I reached into a drawer and pulled out a thin folder. It was plain, with no name on the outside. I placed it gently in front of him. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it," I said. He looked at me, then at her. She was watching everything closely. He opened the folder, pulled out the paper, and started to read. His eyes moved quickly at first, then slowed down. I could see the moment it hit him. He looked up at me. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked back down at the paper, as if reading it again would change what it said. She leaned over and looked too. Her face changed. Her eyebrows pulled together. She looked at him like she didn't recognize him anymore, like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. He tried to speak. He opened his mouth again, but nothing came. No excuses. No anger. Just silence. I sat still. I didn't explain anything. I didn't need to. The test said everything for me. There it was, clear, cold proof. Jamie was not his biological son. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask questions. I just watched them. She sat back in her chair. Her expression had changed completely. She didn't look proud or confident anymore. She looked uncomfortable. Her eyes moved between the paper and his face. She had thought she knew who he was. Now she wasn't so sure. He pushed the paper away. He looked at me like he wanted to say sorry, or maybe ask for something. I didn't say anything. I waited. There was no fight. No argument. Just a quiet moment filled with truth. A moment he couldn't run from. A moment he couldn't talk his way out of. I stood up and picked up the folder. He didn't try to stop me. She didn't speak. I walked to the side of the room and placed it on a shelf. Then I turned back to them. "That's all," I said. He stood slowly. She stood too, not looking at him. They didn't say goodbye. They just left. The door closed behind them, and I stayed where I was. I looked around the quiet room and took a deep breath. It was over. The truth had been shown, not shouted. And now everything was clear. After that meeting, everything changed. She didn't stay long after seeing the truth. She stopped replying to his messages. She didn't answer his calls. A few days later, she blocked him completely. No goodbye. No explanation. She just disappeared from his life. He tried to act like it didn't bother him, but I saw it. He was quieter, slower, unsure. He wasn't used to being the one left behind. She had seen the real picture. Jamie wasn't his child. That was enough for her. She hadn't signed up for this. She liked the image of a man with a family, not the truth that came with it. She had no interest in the past, the lies, or the mess he had created. He thought she would stay with him, even after everything. But she was gone, and he didn't know what to do next. He came home acting like nothing had happened, but I didn't let him pretend. I had made up my mind. I filed for full custody. The papers were ready. I had all the evidence I needed. His affair, his behavior, his distance from Jamie. I told the lawyer everything. We didn't just talk about custody. We also talked about the house, the bills, and everything else that needed to end. When I told him to leave, he didn't argue. Maybe he was too tired. Maybe he knew he had lost everything. He packed his things in silence. No yelling. No begging. He just looked around the room like it was the last time. I watched him from the doorway. He moved slowly, like someone who didn't know where to go. I didn't ask. I didn't offer help. He had made his choices. Now he had to live with them. Jamie was playing in his room. I didn't tell him much. I just said Daddy was going away for a while. He nodded and went back to his toys. He didn't ask questions. I think he already knew something had changed. When the front door closed behind him, the house felt different. Quiet, but not in a sad way. It felt calm, free. There was no more pretending, no more walking on eggshells. Just peace. I started cleaning right away. Not just the rooms, but everything he had left behind. Clothes, papers, little things that didn't matter anymore. I packed them up and put them out of sight. It was time to move forward. He didn't call. He didn't write. He knew there was nothing left to say. He had lost his home, his family, and even the woman he left us for. All in a matter of days. But I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted a quiet life for me and Jamie. A safe home. Honest days. No more lies. And that's what I gave us. Day by day, we started over. Just the two of us. Stronger than before. And he was left with nothing but his own choices to live with. After he left, I started to put everything in order. I spoke to my lawyer and showed her the DNA test. She read it and nodded, but then she explained something I hadn't fully thought about. Even though the test proved Jamie wasn't his by blood, the law still saw him as the father. His name was on the birth certificate. That meant legally he had the same rights and responsibilities as any other father. He couldn't just walk away and pretend none of it mattered. He had helped raise Jamie since birth. He had signed the papers, called himself a father, and made promises. That was more than enough for the court. Biology didn't erase all that. The truth was important, but the law also looked at actions. And his actions said he was a parent. So I filed for child support. It wasn't about money. It was about doing what was fair. He couldn't just disappear and leave everything to me. Jamie still needed food, clothes, school supplies, and care. I was taking care of all of it on my own, but that didn't mean he got to do nothing. At first, he was quiet. Maybe he thought I wouldn't follow through. But then the papers reached him, and he had no choice but to respond. He tried to fight it. His lawyer said the DNA test changed things, but the court disagreed. The judge looked at the documents, asked a few questions, and made a simple decision. He was still the legal father, and he still had duties. The DNA test didn't cancel those out. He had signed up for this life, and now he had to take part in it. When he heard the ruling, he didn't say much. He just looked down like he already knew it was coming. He had hoped to walk away from everything without any strings, but life doesn't always let people do that, especially not when a child is involved. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel happy about it. It wasn't about winning. It was just the right thing. Jamie didn't ask for any of this. He didn't get to choose his father, but he still deserved support, no matter how things ended between us. The payments started a few weeks later. Nothing big, but enough to help. I used the money for Jamie's school needs, clothes, and savings for his future. Every time I saw the deposit, I remembered everything we had gone through. Not with anger, just with clarity. He had tried to walk away, but the law brought him back in. Not as a husband, not as a partner, but as someone who still had a role to play. Maybe not by heart anymore, but by law. And that was enough for now. I kept going. Jamie was growing fast, learning new things, laughing. Our life was getting better day by day. I didn't talk about the case much. I didn't need to. The results were already working for us. He had chosen his path, and I had chosen mine. I wasn't waiting for anything more from him, but at least now he couldn't forget what he was still part of, even from a distance, even in silence. A few weeks passed. The house was quiet now, but peaceful. Jamie was doing well. He laughed more. He slept better. I could see he felt safe. Our days were simple. Breakfast together, school, homework, bedtime stories. No more tension. No more raised voices. Just calm. I hadn't heard from him since the court ruling. He did what the judge told him to do. Nothing more. No calls. No messages. He sent the support money each month. And that was it. He had faded from our lives, just like he had wanted. But I wasn't finished. I went to a small shop in town and bought a frame. It was black with clean lines. Nothing fancy. I took the printed DNA results and placed them inside. The paper fit perfectly. No note, no card, no extra words. Just the truth behind glass. I wrapped the frame carefully, packed it in a box, and mailed it to the last address I had for him. I didn't write anything on the paper inside. I didn't need to. He would know exactly what it was when he opened it. He would see his name, Jamie's name, and the result. No biological match. He would remember everything he forgot. Every promise, every decision, every lie. That paper had broken the lies he tried to live in. Now it would live with him. On a shelf, in a drawer, or in the trash. It didn't matter. He couldn't unsee it. He couldn't take it back. I didn't send it to hurt him. I sent it to close the door. After that, I stopped thinking about him. I focused on Jamie and me. I started making small changes in our home. New curtains. New photos on the wall. The spaces that used to remind me of him were slowly becoming ours. Jamie asked less about his father. He didn't seem sad, just curious sometimes. I answered what I could, in a way he could understand. The rest could wait until he was older. We moved on, one day at a time. I planned new things for us. Weekend trips. Movie nights. A better future. Somewhere out there, he had to live with what he had done. Not because I said anything, but because the truth was now his to carry. That single piece of paper spoke louder than I ever could. He lost a family. He lost respect. And in the end, he lost himself. But I didn't lose. I had my son. I had peace. And I had the strength to start over without looking back. If you believe in rising after betrayal, share this story with someone who needs strength today. Comment your thoughts, and follow for more real-life stories of self-love, healing, and courage. Your journey to peace and power begins now. You're not alone. Let's walk this path together.